so proud to be the first woman ambassador of France. For me, it's a very important element to actually assist my determination to create new opportunities and to dedicate myself to this new job. I'm always asked, is it a challenge for you? I say, no, it's not a challenge, but it's really an opportunity for me. I expect to continue the exceptional relationships we have between France and Greece. It is a relationship which is based on security, as I had in my previous posts, with a very important common response to what happens around us, the conflicts, but also the changing of geopolitics. So Oriental Mediterranean, I would say, is today my main focus of action. So it's always very important to remind that between France and Greece, we were there at each step of Greek history. It was in 1821, we have all the story about Greek independence. Then it was as well First World War, where French soldiers came. It is true after the dictatorship, we arrived to help the restoration of democracy in Greece in 75, 74, and of course during economic crisis. The numbers of the trade exchanges have increased a lot, 10% from one year to the other. And it relies on a lot of different products, pharmacy, but also industrial products. And between France and Greece, our trade is directly linked to what we want to do together. So it's European defense, it's European industry, it's sovereignty in a sense that we need not to be dependent on other countries. We are working together very, very intensely. If you know French Tech, Athens, we created that entry of startups working in both countries, but also we worked on artificial intelligence, not only for startups, but also to have application in the public sector, the big computer, the big companies which are now investing at the world level, and the research. We have all those European programs which we can use together between France and Greece, with a lot of laboratories where we have Greek researchers and Greek engineers in France and in Europe. Discussions are ongoing. After the first signature of the 3 frigates Bellara, we are quite proud of this cooperation. So first frigate that I could visit on the launch in the water, October 23 will be ready in 25. The second has been put in the water in the fall of this summer in the presence of Prime Minister Manousakis. The third is ongoing as well, and the discussions are going on the fourth. So we're not only building to sell, we are building to do together. So it's a very important sector because both countries face the same challenges. Exchange of experience is crucial. For instance, if we want to go towards a more geographically or a more temporally tourism during the year, in the territory, we have to work on the exchange of best practices, on the exchange of how we go to this sustainable tourism that we both in Greece and in France look after. The human factor between the two countries is a great help. And what we try to do today between the countries in this sector is to put more in the front stage. What we can do, for instance, on products which can be of values, Greek products in France, French products in Greece, good practices in tourism, sustainable management of hotels. We are also countries of heritage. We want to work together on this, how the Louvre today can, or Versailles, can host as well big summits, but as well 12 million tourists. And I think the Acropolis has the same challenge. So a lot to do, to be done together. Well, first of all, it's a very positive dialogue. If you have security in the Aegean Sea, if you have the conditions to prevent any new difficulty, it's in the interest of every country. So I would say that as a whole, for Europe and for a country such as France, it's very crucial that the level of tension in Eastern Mediterranean is kept low. And we see it as very positive. But it's a bilateral dialogue, and it goes in different directions. It's about migration, it's about confidence measures in different sectors, heritage, tourism. It's linked between people to people. So we respect very much what has been started 1 year and a half ago. And of course, if the Greek government anybody needs France, we are there. As you know, in our strategic partnership, the document signed, we have a mutual clause, meaning that if some incident occurs somewhere, the French is committed to come and support Greece. So this is something very strong that we are, of course, committed to. There is a lot of uncertainty about what happens, for instance, in Syria. The next step, of course, has to be built all together. It's a step where we have to consolidate Syria as a sovereign country. We have to consolidate civil society, a government, institutions, and the relationship with the neighbors. Of course, we share all those views with Greek government and Greek officials, because as you know, the relationship between Greece, Egypt, Greece, Lebanon, but also in the broader sense of the security of the region with the operation Aspides, securing the boats going through the Suez Canal, is being organized by Greece. So Greece is a crucial actor in that view in the region on all aspects. When we need actually support in Aspides, we work between the international community and Greece, because we are all, for instance, committed to the peace which has been, and the ceasefire which has been declared between Hamas and Israel, but the conditions of security are still going to be discussed between the stakeholders. And in South Lebanon, the same. There was this truce, but it was also a commitment of both countries, Greece and France, to help the national army in Lebanon to secure correct borders, correct conditions with UNIFIL. May I stress as well that Greece has taken a new role for 2 years in the United Nations Security Council. And this is quite important because we coordinate, as you imagine, now for this preparation of the biennium of Greece. And I must say that it's a great pleasure and it's a great honor to run this cooperation. Well, of course, France and the US are strong allies. It's Lafayette. It's also something which is not to be denied, but what we should actually take into account in this new period is that facing so many changes and new announcements and new strategies, would that be towards trade, towards Europe, towards sovereignties of some territories, it's a booster for Europe. European countries should just go united. It's a great incentive to create a European defense industry, not to be relying on the US or on China or on other countries. The second point is about our values. As you understand and you know, France, Greece are very strong about what we want in an international forum. It's sovereignties of the countries, it's about relating towards our international rules And this has to be continued. We don't want suddenly the international community to become a Far West. You know, we want that our principles, our values continue to be discussed. And last but not least is about the European part of NATO. You know, NATO, it's been an ongoing dialogue we have with the US that NATO, after Second World War, was relying on the US. Now this era is finished, and we have to be responsible about our NATO. Under NATO, the European part of NATO should be stronger. Populism, right, disinformation, migration. You know, for instance, when we discuss about Syria, you have to remember that some flows of migrants today, we have a rule in Europe, it's a pact called Migration and Asylum Pact, but it is true that if we have new circumstances, we don't want those new circumstances lie and as a result create a new movement of opposition in France of our own citizens. So the government is very clear that we want to reinforce the pact on the question of returns. So when a migrant arrives and has no right to be an asylum seeker, we should be able to put him back and make him returning to his country. It's also a question about terrorism. I'm not saying that there is a link between extreme right and terrorism in Europe, but it's also our responsibility to know that we cannot let Europe being an open place for movements of terror. We have to cope with the phenomena who are creating some oppositions to governments in our countries. And I would add a last phenomenon, which is disinformation. I mean, if we have through social networks wrong information or informations which doesn't give correctly the citizens the capacity to judge what is happening, the phenomena and the causes, the roots should be taken very seriously by all governments into account in this very strange and complicated period. Of course, if the American new administration wants to be a broker of this situation, it would be good. For a long term, as you know, Russia didn't put seriously elements for a peace deal. And I must also insist on the fact that it's to the Ukrainian government to say if the conditions are met. And so we need to have the Ukrainian agreement. If a peace process starts to be discussed, the conditions, security conditions, guarantees for the future, etc. Why am I insisting on all those elements? It's because France and the EU took all the measures since the aggression started to help Ukraine. Would that be with ammunition, with help on training of the personnel, but also, if you take the case of Greece, the Greek government helped a lot on the reconstruction. So new circumstances being put on the table should be, of course, taken into account in this possible peace process that talks or peace situation that could start, hopefully, for Ukraine.